Hello everybody, welcome to Wonky Angle, where I talk about electronic music, both new and old. And today, pretty dang late, but I'm talking about Tipper, Jettison Mind Hatch. Alright, this is another project from 2019 that I missed, but I'd been interested in covering it. Like, I'm a newcomer to this guy's work. I'd never heard of him until like a few months ago. I know one guy in my comments has been bugging me to check out Tipper for months and going on about how he's one of the best things to happen to electronic music. A few other people highlighted him in both my year-end and decade-end videos, which furthered my interest, though I will freely admit there was some initial hesitation for me to actually go through with checking him out just because I thought Tipper was a lame-sounding stage name. But that is his actual last name, Dave Tipper, which, sure. I suppose it's kind of a dumb reason to hesitate given I'm a fan of Spunkshine and Magic Sound Fabric. But the more I read up on him and discovered he's actually a pretty well-respected name, apparently a pioneer of the new school breakbeat style, and he's regularly been at it, putting out albums since 2000, he looked more and more like the kind of artist that would be up my usual alley, and I really didn't have any excuse to sleep on him anymore. So I figured, why not catch myself up? So I went through all his studio albums, and here are my thoughts on his discography so far. Well, this is a pretty damn promising debut, I will say. Totally would have loved to find this when I was in my hybrid phase in high school. It's kind of like their blend of dark, orchestral-tinged breakbeat material, combined with some more freaky and complex IDM. Apparently this project was too artistic for his label to know what to do with, and they dropped him shortly after, which... okay? I mean, it's not commercial exactly, but it's not that out there. It was just the right mix of commercial and experimental to really resonate with me, though. Great project. Really had me excited to check out his other stuff. I even ordered a CD today. See, this one seems more experimental, less melody for sure, even though there are strong danceable beats throughout. Wasn't quite as into this one as Critical Path, a bit overlong and not as instrumentally interesting, but still pretty solid and fun stuff here. This was pretty fun though, a nice little more laid-back, down-tempo, trip-hop-y thing. Not precisely the most mind-blowing stuff I've ever heard in this genre, but still fits his style pretty well and has plenty of variety to keep me interested. Apparently it was originally designed for a 5.1 surround system, hence the title, but I do not have a 5.1 system. But, thankfully it works quite well in stereo. I think this is a keeper. Alright, first one to be released on his own independent label, Tipper Music, and despite the corny album title, this turned out to be pretty damn fun. It shows Tipper flexing his skills as a DJ, both in the super seamless continuous mix of the album and his actual turntable scratching all over the place, which is pretty impressive in its own right. It is pretty dated, as you might be able to guess, but still has its own charm in that datedness that's still enjoyable all the way through. Surprisingly solid stuff. I'll hang on to this. This one's okay? It has its moments, but doesn't really do anything he hasn't already done, especially on holding pattern. And even if his style of breakbeats are still playful and fun and easily distinctive, he wasn't doing as much interesting stuff with them this time. Kinda disappointing, honestly, especially after all his previous albums being so different from each other. Except for the track Couch Barrels, that track is actually really good, and this album did not deserve it. That's a very Spunkshine-like album title if I ever saw one, but yeah, this was a lot better than Relish the Trough. Had time for subtle, contemplative, down-tempo, and more strange and whacked-out experimental stuff, and kept it all pretty interesting. Not sure if I'll hang on to it, all a bit muted, didn't stick out to me a lot, but I did enjoy it. I think this is like a B-sides collection or something. I'm seeing quite a few tracks with titles very similar to those on Relish the Trough, and other albums, as well as a couple of remixes from other people, tracks already released on other comps, whatever. I still listen to it since I mistook it for a main album, and it pretty much sounds exactly like Relish the Trough, so yeah, it's just okay, probably not going to keep it. There's a guy here called Buckfunk 3000 who did 2 remixes, and I didn't even notice they were made by someone else. I guess this is something in between Relish the Trough and Tip Hop. It is thankfully pretty interesting sounding throughout and has enough of its own flavor to still come out enjoyable. Not his best or his worst, probably won't hang on to it, but it was cool. Alright, here we go, now we're talking. finally delivering on the promise he showed on his debut again. Even though this doesn't sound like his debut much at all. It's another more down-tempo album, kind of in the vein of Surrounded, but with more world music influences and instrumental variety, jazz elements, and orchestral stuff. Great freaking sound design throughout. One of his best for sure. Definite keeper here. Alright, more focus on the electronics and less on the world music instrumentation, but keeps up the same level of heavily detailed and refreshing sound design as seen on Broken Soul Jamboree. Still like that project more. This one was kind of samey, but still really solid stuff. Which brings us to here. I will admit, not every Tipper project is a winner for me. There were quite a few that I just found kind of boring, but even at his worst, the guy does still have an easily recognizable style and can consistently put together some danceable grooves. And his best stuff did in fact really impress me. I think he came out the gate super strong with The Critical Path. And while I don't think he hit that level of quality again until Broken Soul Jamboree, there was plenty of variety in his catalog too, and some definite keepers throughout the years. I'll probably still hang on to Surrounded and Tip Hop, and we'll see. I was pretty excited to get into this latest one. His last two projects in particular set a pretty high standard for his sound design, though he's made sure to keep trying to push himself into new territory throughout his career, so I didn't have many expectations of what it would sound like. So what did we get with Jettison Mind Hatch? Well, we got 12 more tracks of beautifully layered down-tempo music with top-notch sound design that very easily falls into the background. Basically, it's just Forward Escape again. I have listened to this project a lot more. I had a lot more time to let it sit with me. I don't know if I would say it's any better or worse than that project, though. I mean, I know a lot of people have gone nuts over this one, but I think the hype might be a little overblown. Like, I don't think it's one of the best albums of the decade. I don't think it's a retroactive addition to my year-end list of 2019. I don't think it's the best work he's ever done. I don't even think it's a great project. But it is a good project. It's a little short on hooks. It doesn't really let its individual tracks build much of a unique identity apart from each other. It's also kind of samey. But it's carried entirely on incredible production and sound design, which does in fact go a long way. This is going to be a pretty difficult project to talk about on a more individual track basis, mainly because I can barely tell these tracks apart from each other. This whole thing totally runs together. Though when you first start this project, it sure does, just get you into it right away. Like, Sayonara is a beautifully uplifting opener with layers of bubbling synths, blinking electric pianos. There's a specific texture of electric piano that's carried through all of Tipper's work. And it's going up against these complex and chopped up break beats, gurgling watery effects, reverb-covered pitched water droplet sound effects, even some subtle dubstep wubbing in a few places. It's a track that just seems to bloom and blossom into this warm, inviting experience. And while not every track completely matches its mood and mix, all of them come pretty close. There are, of course, a few highlights every now and then. Vection has a much more hard-hitting approach to its sound with sharper modern EDM percussion, and after all its blends of psychedelic synths build up, it pays off in a darker drop section in its second half with all these aggressive, buzzing dubstep wubs of various different shapes and sizes. Pretty dang cool stuff. There is a pretty on-the-nose voice sample on that one about sounds going on in your mind that I kinda wish wasn't there, but whatever, it is also a signpost to help this track stick out better in my head. Viscous does a lot of the same kinds of sounds as that track too, even has tabla drumming. That one's cool. And there are other tracks like Sahra, which does in fact bring a little more instrumental muscle outside of just the usual synth blends. There's some throat singers, some more interesting clanging percussion, flutes, guitars. A track like this is very much welcome. I also really liked the bubbling filtered synths going up on top of subtle orchestral pads and maybe even a xylophone lick or two on C'est la vie, one of the more easily recognizable tracks there too. But there are also tracks like Baleen, which is mainly built on top of these kind of thin and rough creaking bass synths that aren't really that satisfying. And there are several tracks here like Exit Chapel Perilous, Fallow, Permatemp, and others that sound really good but give me nothing to say and don't stand out in the track listing. Album as a whole is kind of front-loaded, and most of my favorite moments are in the first half, maybe with the exception of Tethers. That one had some really nice summery uplifting vibes and even some jazzy drumming. That one was good. And Shelled was noticeably more stripped back than other tracks here, but even that one I don't know if I'd mark as a huge favorite. Look, here's the thing. I've listened to lots and lots of down-tempo artists over the years, and Tipper is most definitely talented and has proven himself to be a really versatile, creative, and unique name in the realm of this genre. This album in particular, though, well, it's not so far out of the box that immediate comparisons can't be drawn to artists like Blue Tech, or Solar Fields, or Hole Bauman, or, I guess, Magic Sound Fabric, or anyone in the Ultimate Records crowd. Maybe even those early Bass Nectar albums like Mesmerizing the Ultra, not far off from that either. Like, point is, I'm not exactly hearing sounds that are completely unlike anything I've ever heard before here. But all that aside, the production does a lot of heavy lifting. Tipper can get away with this album being a little one-note because there's so much going on in every track, and all of it feels so well balanced with nothing out of place or any sound trying to call more of your attention than any other. There really aren't that many artists out there capable of delivering this level of sound design while still retaining some kind of unique personality in the way that Tipper does. So for that, I can still probably recommend giving this project a shot. It sounds absolutely gorgeous. I mean, I wouldn't be complaining about all this kind of stuff if A, he didn't already have other albums that sound just like it, like Forward Escape, or even do it better like Broken Soul Jamboree, and B, he hadn't established himself as the kind of artist who liked redefining himself and pushing himself into new territory. This project doesn't really do that. So, I don't know. Take that all as you will. This is a pretty solid project. Just, don't be dumb and try to pay hundreds of dollars for Yu's final release. It's good, but it's not that good. I'm overall feeling a 7.3 out of 10. But of course, this is just my opinion. You can feel free to disagree with it, but I'd like to hear your thoughts, so leave the comments in the comment thing down there. Shout out to my Patreon supporters. They're awesome people. You want to add yourself to that list or make me review something, link to my Patreon is in the description. But yeah, that's pretty much it. That's all for today. See you next time.